right, here we go. What is biology, right? Well, a lot of time you ask people, what is biology? They'll say it's the study of life. Well, that's kind of boring, right? That's really not what it is. Here's some important vocabulary for this section: biology, organism, organization, reproduction, species growth, development, environment, stimulus response, homeostasis, energy, adaptation, and evolution. Okay? Now, most people would say it's the study of life, but that is such a generic term. It's so boring. Nobody really wants to study life. What does that mean? Biology is kind of neat, man, if you study the different things around you. You study how many different variety of species there are. Many of y'all, I don't know how many trees you could name, how many species of trees, how many species of animals, but there's a lot of variety around this planet, and it gets different in different places you go. Where do these different animals live, right? I'll be honest with y'all, I like to travel a lot. I've been to Spain, Italy, England, France, China, and all the animals, all the plants, all the species are all different. It's really kind of cool to look at. The birds aren't even the same. They don't even look naturally the same. You know, obviously you can go to the beach and you can see a different bird species than what you would see here in North Carolina or here in town in Lumberton or St. Paul's. You don't really see a lot of cardinals at the ocean, right? Different places, different animals. What they are like, everything is unique in its own way. How do these organisms relate to each other? How do they keep from competing with each other for food and resources? And then how these things balance each other out and live together to form our world. It's kind of cool, all right? So why biology? It's interesting to see the unique forms of life. What are their unique features and how these features work specifically to help them in that environment. You can see this animal here. His fur style, his whole outfit or whatever, it just kind of matches his environment. That helps camouflage him, helps allow him to survive so the predators won't kill him. Same thing with this jellyfish. Most of us don't think, it's a jellyfish, right? I mean, how much do we really care about a jellyfish? Probably none. But it's kind of neat just to pay attention to the fact, well, wow, I mean, you know, this jellyfish is clear. It makes sense because it's in clear water. And it makes it translucent or transparent, and probably predators probably can't see it. So just that characteristic alone allows it to survive and live a long life, right? I mean, it's little stuff like that. Just pay attention to it and notice it, you know, and just appreciate it for what it is. And then we all move on, right? But just don't be completely oblivious to it. Scientists do study how organisms are tied together. They study how organisms interact with one another. Is one a predator? Is one a prey? Do two organisms both depend on one food source? Are they in competition with each other? Because nothing on the planet can live alone. Everything is connected to something else in order to be able to survive. Think about all the animals and plants we depend on for food. Just this morning, I depended on a pig because I had to have my sausage biscuit. I don't know what y'all have for breakfast this morning, but I had to have my sausage biscuit. I depended on wheat because that wheat was used to make the bread that made the biscuit that was part of my sausage biscuit. I had to depend on chickens because I like a little bit of egg on my sausage biscuit. I don't know about y'all. I had to depend on grapes because I like a little bit of grape jelly. Right? So that's 4 species that I had to depend on just this morning, just for breakfast. So, you know, it's neat to acknowledge, but I mean, we're not going to make a mountain out of a molehill. But it is neat to acknowledge and appreciate the great variety of life on the planet and how they're all tied together. And then finally, biologists will study how organisms interact with their environment. Organisms have to interact with their environment. They have no option, right? Plants need sunlight to grow, okay? Plants need soil to grow. They have to get nutrients from the soil. Again, I can't see the exam. That's probably because we're in lecture. I don't have the exam up right now. I don't even know how to respond to that. But I'm just going to keep going. Yeah, just be patient, and eventually you'll be able to see the quiz when that time comes. Okay, so don't put the cart before the horse, if that makes any sense to you. Plants do need soil. They have to have it. They have to have water to survive. And then animals will use plants for shade. They will use it for shelter. Y'all see animals, birds living in trees, insects living underneath the roots or underneath logs that have fallen over in the woods or whatever. Animals do use their environment for camouflage, and animals and plants draw oxygen and carbon dioxide from their environment that they have to survive. Plants do have to have carbon dioxide. Animals have to have oxygen, and we're in a constant exchange between each other and those two things. Okay? All right. Now, this is what biology is. Biology is studying life, is studying the unique things around us, how they're tied together, and how they interact with their environment. Okay? This is a different topic. Okay? For something to be considered living, scientists say that it has to have 5 characteristics of life. This is a different topic now. Okay, what is biology over here, and what do biologists study? And then what does it mean to be a living thing? What are the characteristics of life? To be considered living, you have to have 5 things. You have to have all 5. It can't be 2 out of 5, can't be 3 out of 5, 4 out of 5. It has to be all 5. It must be made of cells, and these cells must be organized. That's basically 1 and 2 together. It must be able to reproduce. It must be able to adjust to its environment, and it must be able to grow and develop. Why is somebody calling me on the phone right now? Why is somebody calling me on the phone? Do they not know that we're virtual teaching? Lord, let me take a deep breath for these people. Okay. Now, characteristics of living things must be able to adjust to its environment, and it must be able to grow and develop. Now, characteristics of living things. It must be made up of cells, and it must be organized. So what does that mean? It can be made up of cells. They can be bacterial cells, plant cells, or animal cells. But these cells must show organization. That means it must come together. These cells must come together to form tissues. These tissues must come together to form organs. These organs must come together to form organ systems. And these organ systems must come together to form an organism, right? So what you see here is you see like a cardiac cell. By now you should know cardiac means heart, okay? A cardiac cell will come together to form cardiac tissue. Cardiac tissue will come together to form a heart. Then you have this heart becomes part of the cardiovascular system, and the cardiovascular system put together with the digestive system, the endocrine system, the respiratory system, all of those, the skeletal system, all of those things come together to form a full-blooded organism, okay? So the first characteristics of living things is it has to be made of cells, and it has to be organized in this fashion. The second thing is it has to be able to reproduce. Well, all of you know what that means, I'm sure, okay? You must be able to make more than one of yourself. Some of you can probably make 6, 7, or 8. I don't know. It depends on what your plans are in life. But we all do know what this means. It is essential for the continuation of a species. Organisms have to be able to reproduce for that species to be able to survive long term, okay? A species is defined as an organism or a group of organisms that can interbreed, and they have to be able to produce fertile offspring. Now, this gets tricky. There's a couple of questions on the EOC you need to be aware of. If two organisms can interbreed and produce an offspring that can also reproduce later on in life, then these original 2 organisms are the same species. Here's where you run into something where they might not be the same species. A lion and a tiger can produce a liger, which is a huge, huge tiger-liger, lion-looking thing. But it cannot produce babies, so therefore it is infertile, okay? There was a guy named Doc Antle in that Netflix series called The Lion King. This guy, Doc Antle, is actually in Myrtle Beach, South Carolina, and you can pay about $350, I think, to go visit these ligers and elephants and all of this other stuff, just in case y'all want to go. But it's in Myrtle Beach. But since, even though a lion and a tiger can produce a liger, since that liger is infertile, a lion and a tiger are not considered the same species. Now, I'm not an FFA person, they're across the hall, but I have heard before that a horse and a donkey can produce a mule. They can interbreed, a horse and a donkey. They can interbreed and produce a mule. But a mule cannot have babies with another mule, or a mule cannot reproduce with another mule and have babies. So that mule is infertile. So therefore, a horse and a donkey are not the same species. I hope this is making sense to y'all, because it is kind of important. So that's characteristic number 2. Has to be able to reproduce. Characteristic number 3 is it has to be able to, or actually 4, has to be able to adjust to its environment, right? It must have a response to a stimuli. A response is a direct reaction to a certain condition in the environment, and a stimulus is a condition or a cause that will elicit a response in an organism. So right now in this room, it's hot. The AC is not working in this hallway. It's the 300 hallway down by the gym. Y'all know it's always hot. The stimulus right now is the heat in this classroom. And how is my body responding? Well, I don't stink, but I'm sweating, okay? When your body gets extremely hot, you start to sweat. And that's the way your body temperature brings itself back down, back into balance. Okay, you get hot, you sweat, it brings it back down. If you get cold, right, if your body temperature gets real low, you'll start to shiver. Okay, you get cold, you start shivering and shaking, right? That's your body trying to bring its body temperature back up, back into balance. When your muscles shake like that, what's happening is your muscle cells are contracting and sliding against one another. And if you do that like your hands, you can actually feel the heat that is produced from that friction. And that's how your body brings its body temperature back up, right? You're reacting to your environment. Some plants will grow towards the sunlight. The direction of the sunlight is the stimulus, and then the plants will grow that way. That is a response. If the light moves, the plants will grow towards that sunlight. That's kind of how it works. Some of you might know people that have diabetes, right? My dad does, my grandma does. I think my grandpa did. He's dead now, but he still had it. Those people have a tendency to either have trouble releasing insulin or keeping their blood sugar in check. And your blood sugar has to be in balance too. Sometimes, you know, when your blood sugar gets real high, like if you ate a bunch of candy, your pancreas will actually release insulin and it brings your blood sugar level back down into balance. Sometimes people's blood sugar level gets real low and they'll have to eat a candy bar or something to get that blood sugar back up into balance. People that have diabetes, they have a genetic condition in their pancreas where their body won't release insulin. So if their blood sugar level gets really high, they'll have to take an insulin shot to bring it down, or either they might wear an insulin pump on their body somewhere that actually will pump insulin to them as they need it. All right, so these are all being able to adjust to changes in your environment. And that balance that I keep talking about, right? Your body keeping itself in balance with its environment is homeostasis. Anytime homie's trying to stay the same, you're trying to stay in balance, that's your body trying to maintain homeostasis. If it gets hot, my body temperature gets high, I sweat. That brings it back down. If my body temperature gets really, really low and I start to shiver, that's bringing it back up. That's homeostasis. Blood sugar level gets really high, I release insulin, it brings it back down. Blood sugar level gets really, really low, I eat some candy, and it's back up again. That's just maintaining homeostasis, y'all. And it's all about adjusting to a change in your environment. Now, y'all might have seen a frog lay out on a lily pad, or an alligator lay on the beach along the sandy part beside the banks of a river. Reptiles have a tendency to lay underneath sunlight to absorb heat, to keep their body temperature warm. But when they get warm and they get too hot, to cool off, what they'll do is jump back in the water and they'll cool off. So that's how they maintain homeostasis. All right, this one's fairly simple. The 5th characteristic is that you have to be able to grow and develop. We've all grown over time. Organisms grow, they get larger, they get smarter. Sometimes if we fall and scratch our arm, we can grow new skin. Our cells will replicate and it appears like we're growing. A sea star can grow a new arm, a lizard can grow a new tail. This is all parts of growth, or all means of growing. And you develop. Obviously, you know, we learn to talk, we learn to walk, we gain the use of our hands, our feet, we get stronger, faster, and smarter, hopefully. I've seen some answers on some quizzes this afternoon that it doesn't appear like that last one has happened. But I'll hope for a little bit better from your class. All right, now, that's the 5 characteristics of living things. They had to be able to be made of cells. These cells had to be organized. It must be able to reproduce. It must be able to adjust to its environment. It can react to stimuli and try to maintain homeostasis. And then it had to be able to grow and develop. All right. Now, last slide here. And it's knowing the difference between an adaptation and evolution. An adaptation is a random mutation that a single organism was born with, right? And it just so happened to be a perfect adaptation for an environment. It could be a bad adaptation, but in this image, what you see is an Arctic fox, and it just so happened to be born maybe albino, and it had white fur. Well, in this environment, that's a perfect adaptation. It just got lucky. And it might have been in a population of foxes that were in the Arctic region that were brown, right? It just might have got lucky. And those brown foxes, right, their adaptation is not perfect for this environment. So over time, hunters, poachers, polar bears are going to easily identify that brown fox on that white snow. And they're going to be able to attack it. They're going to be able to kill it. And over time, that brown population of fox is going to go down. While this white fox, it's going to be able to camouflage. It's going to be able to survive. It's going to be able to hide. It'll be able to get away, okay? Might not help to have that black nose, but overall, it'll be able to hide and get away. This one will survive. It will reproduce. It'll have babies with other foxes. And the babies, some of those babies will have that white fur trait. And that will continue to be passed on from generation to generation. And over time, you'll see the brown fox population go down and the white fox population will just skyrocket, okay? Because they're just passing on that trait to more and more offspring. That change in that entire population over time is called evolution. That's the difference between the two. If it's a single organism that's born with a random mutation that helps it survive in that environment, then that random mutation that it was born with is called an adaptation. But when it passes it on to its offspring over many years, and that entire population changes, that is evolution. Okay, so make sure you know the difference between those two. Now, at this time, just right now, I want you to hop into the chat real quick and type your full name. It is 11:06, okay? It is 11:06 a.m. I want everybody to hop into the chat and type your full name. And then wait for my next instruction, right? Wait for my next instruction. While you are typing in that full name, I'm going to show you Canvas one more time. All right, today, what you will need to be able to do, right? Make sure that you have all of the introduction to Canvas pieces completed, right? Everything will have a check, just like mine does. This main top part will have a check. To do that, I know at least you have to mark the attendance policy as done, but I've gone over that with you guys. Then that will unlock this module. You have to complete each piece in order, right? You do have to do it in sequential order. So you have to mark the Zoom lecture done, the syllabus, we did that yesterday, so mark that it's done. You'll view these notes. I'm gonna tell y'all, man, please, Lord, for the love of God, don't Google these answers, man. Don't be stupid. I gave 70 people zeros in first period. It's retarded. Please use your notes to help you answer these questions because this was directly related to these notes. Now, let me show you this because there's a trick here. This thing, the way these quizzes are created, it's a little different. It'll tell you question 1 covers questions 1 through 9 on the worksheet. Well, what does that mean? Well, there's questions 1 through 9 on the worksheet, and it ain't nothing but matching. The way the quiz works is question 1 is right here, and it covers all 9 of those first questions. So all you're doing here is just simply matching the vocabulary word with the definition. Match the vocabulary word with the definitions. Everybody understand? Hopefully everybody understands. Now it tells you question 2 actually covers question 10. So question 10 on the worksheet is, what are some ways organisms are tied to other organisms? That is question 2, right? So you should be able to figure that out. I'm hoping that at this point in y'all's life, y'all can figure that out. So I'm not going to share any more of that with you. All right. Now, looks like everybody good at 11:06 a.m. Everybody's got their name typed in. If everybody has your name typed in, all right, and you understand how to do the assignments and how to get to Canvas and go do your thing, then we're done. I'm going to make it to where you can unmute yourself. If you have any questions at this time, unmute yourself and feel free to ask. All right, other than that, you're free to go. If you have questions, now is the time to ask those questions.